Hey guys, it's Brian. We're back in the garage with the Frostbite JL, and today we're going to go ahead and throw on some new ball joints. Let's take a look. Alright guys, so we're going to swap out the ball joints. Mine are pretty bad, so we're going to upgrade to some HD ball joints. These are going to be the Spicer ball joints. If you take a look, these are going to be the part numbers there for you. So this is Spicer's HD ball joint. This is kind of what they look like. They are a lot stiffer than the ones I have in the axle when I did the axle swap. Alright, and they also come with greasers, so they are greasable, so they will last a lot longer. It does need a needle greaser on one of them. I did go ahead and buy an adapter for my grease gun. We'll show you that in a little bit. But another main thing you're going to need is a ball joint press. And this is what they look like. You can get these any local auto parts store. They have you rent them and then you just return them. So we're going to be using this as well. So let's go ahead and we'll throw these on the Jeep. Alright guys, so what we're going to start with is getting the brakes off, and then we can get to those ball joints. We do need to go ahead and get a T30, and we're going to remove the brake rotor, and then we're also going to need a 13mm for the slides for the brake calipers as well, and then a 21 for the brake caliper bracket, and then we can pull the whole rotor off, get down to the hub. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright guys, so one thing to note before you pull the brakes off, you do want to go ahead and break this 36mm nut loose on the axle. It makes it a lot easier if you got the brakes on. You have somebody go put their feet on the brakes, and then it'll keep this from rotating. You can break this nut free. It's a lot easier. So we'll start with that and then we'll pull the brakes. Alright guys, now that we got all the brakes off, we have to go ahead and disconnect our ABS lines, take this little heat shield off, and then we got to actually pull the hub off. So if you come in here and look, this heat shield's going to be 10mm bolts. There's 3 of them. And then you're going to want to use an Allen to go ahead and remove this. This one's a 3/16. And then if you look on the back here, we've got some 13mm that we need to remove, and that's what's holding the hub on. So we'll go ahead and we'll pull those guys off, and then we can get to the knuckle. Alright guys, so after you get the hub off, you're going to use a 12-point 13mm socket to pull that guy off. There's 3 bolts on that. Then you can go ahead and pull out the axle shaft. You want to be very careful with this. So you don't want to screw up any of the seals in there. Alright, so that's off. Careful, there's going to be some oil on there. Now we can go ahead and disconnect our drag link and our tie rod. We can loosen up our ball joint nuts and start pounding this knuckle off. Let's go ahead and do that. Alright guys, so now that we got the hub off and we got the steering disconnected, we can go ahead and we can unbolt the bolts on the ball joints. So what we're going to want to do is loosen them up. We don't want to thread them all the way off. And then we're going to have to hit on this flat spot here until this pops down. Once that's out of the way, we can go ahead and remove them. So let's do that. Alright guys, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to press out the top ball joint first. So we kind of set it up with a larger cup to receive the ball joint, and then we're going to have the screw push down in on the top of that. So what we do is we use our 22mm. We're going to go ahead and crank on this by hand, and then it should just pop right into that cup for us. Alright guys, so now that we have the top one out, it was pretty loose, so it's probably a good thing we're replacing these. If you come in and look, this is how we're going to set it up for the bottom, similar to the top. We're going to use the big cup again. You want to make sure you get it on here good. And then the little adapter here, and then you want to make sure the stud can move freely through the opening in the bottom. So this looks good. We're going to go ahead and push this guy down, and then we can put our new ball joints in. Alright, now that we got both ball joints out, we can go ahead and clean up the inside here. I'm going to put a little anti-seize on there so the new ones go in smoothly. But this bottom one was super loose. So this could be why we're getting a little bit of the start of death wobble. So hopefully the new ball joints fix that. Let's go ahead and get them installed. Alright guys, so we got the bottom one pressed in. You do want to use this combination of cups. You want something that's going to be pushing just on the bottom of the lip without crushing the grease boot. And then you also want an adapter down here that lets the stud pass through. And then the little cup on the top that's slightly bigger than the ball joint. So now that we got it pressed in, we'll show you what it looks like. Alright guys, so if you come in and look, you want to be careful as you're sucking it in here. You want to make sure this lip down here on the bottom sits flat up against the C here. It looks like we got it in there nice and perfect. We're going to go ahead and put the grease zert back on. We might grease it a little bit, and then we'll put the top one in. Alright, so guys, this is the orientation we use for going ahead and pressing in the top one. You do want to use the small cup again, and then you want the one that's just big enough to get on the flange but not get your grease boot. And then you want to make sure your stud passes through again. Press it up until it's real tight and seated, and then you're all set. We can go ahead and reassemble this side. All right, guys, if you come in and look, this is what the new ball joints are going to look like. We got them all nicely seated, pushed through. You can tell on top here that it's nice and flush and even, which is good. You don't want to crank these in sideways. So we got these in. We can go ahead and put our knuckle and our steering back on, put our brakes back together, and we can wrap up this side. All right, guys, so before we get this too far back together, we're going to go ahead and lube our ball joints. You do need one of these needle adapters for your grease gun. It's made by Lock and Lube. This will pop right on the end of your traditional grease gun, and it'll let you go ahead and do that needle zert there on the bottom. So we want to grease that before we get the axle shaft back in, just because you won't be able to reach it after. All right. All right. Just a couple little pumps with that guy, and then we'll grease the top here. All right, guys, now that we have this all back together and greased, we're going to go ahead and torque these nuts. So what you want to do is you want to start with the bottom. You're going to torque that to 15 foot-pounds, and then you're going to come up here, torque the top to 59, and then you'll come back to the bottom and do that one to 50. That'll set the preload on these ball joints, and that'll avoid any clicking, clunking going down the road, so they'll be torqued correctly. So let's go ahead, we'll do that, and then we can start reassembly. All right, guys, so we're all done with the passenger side. If you come in and take a look, we'll go over the torque specs real quick, and then we're going to do the other side, and we'll come back and let you know how it turned out. So big axle nut, that one's going to be 100. These ones for the caliper slides are going to be 27. The big ones on the back are 148, the ones that hold the caliper bracket on. All right, and then the bolts that go into the hub, they're going to be 74 foot-pounds, and then these guys on the steering are going to be 55 with cotter pins. So we got it all buttoned back up. We're going to go ahead and throw the other side on, and we'll let you know how it is out at the end. All right, guys, that's going to do it for the install of my Spicer HG ball joints on my JL. It went pretty smooth. It does help to have an extra set of hands. We took it for a quick test drive, and it actually did get rid of all my shimmy I had in the steering wheel. So that was definitely a success. Guys, go ahead and like and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next video. We got some more cool stuff coming. Thanks, guys.